Well, welcome again, class of 2021 students and loved ones. My name is Jeff Gallant, Associate Director of Undergraduate Admission at Boston College, and welcome to this panel with Boston College alumni from the East Coast. We were talking before we started, this has been an unbelievable year, and last year at this time we were talking with the class of 2020 and really feeling for them. And as difficult as they had it, I think you all have had it more challenging. You've dealt with multiple years of high school being disrupted by COVID. So to begin, I hope that you and your loved ones have remained safe and healthy over the past year. But congratulations on getting to this point. You should be very proud of your success. This has been a historic year for Boston College in a number of ways. This is the most selective year we've had in my time in admissions. Our acceptance rate was just under 19%. So I know we have both early decision students and regular decision students. So for the early decision applicants on the call, we're thrilled to be your college choice. Hope you're excited. You have so much to look forward to. And then for the regular decisions students who are still deciding, we know that we face stiff competition. I think it's fair to say that we feel like we have some of the best high school students in the country on this call right now. So we're excited to introduce you to these folks. This will certainly be I think a real productive use of your time, and I think you'll definitely enjoy listening to the conversation. So what we're going to do is we're going to have them introduce themselves. We're going to go alphabetical order by first name. So Yvonne's going to start in a second. Once they're finished, please feel free to add questions using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and we'll try to answer as many of them as possible. But thank you for your time and serious consideration. We're very excited to be with you this evening. Yvonne, do you mind starting us off?
Yeah, happy to do so. Hey, everyone. Once again, congratulations. I'm happy to be here with you all. So I'm Yvonne Allo, class of 2012 at Boston College in the Carroll School of Management. I grew up in Bloomfield, New Jersey, northern part of New Jersey, went to Seton Hall Preparatory School, and had a great experience at Boston College. Have been able to do some pretty awesome things since I graduated. I ended up studying finance, worked in real estate, and I currently now run my own venture capital firm with actually one of my Boston College roommates. So it all kind of comes full circle.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jamie Shokon, class of 2014. I also was in the Carroll School of Management, majoring in marketing, information, and information systems with a minor in theology. I'm from the New Jersey area as well. I grew up in Edison, New Jersey. I named my cat Thomas Edison, and he's a quarantine cat, and went to Union Catholic High School in Scotch Plains, New Jersey. After business, sorry, I'm in business school right now. I almost said that. After undergrad, I went to work for an electronic brokerage firm on their high-touch research, sales, and trading desk, focusing on the sectors of consumer stocks, energy stocks, and also tech stocks. And then the energy vertical actually got carved out, and I went with that. And it was a large acquisition by a private equity fund. So it was really kind of growing and scaling during my time there. I left to go to business school. I started here at Duke University's Pupil School of Business in their daytime MBA program. I'm graduating also. I'm also class of 2021, and I can fully empathize with Zoom school, and I'm sure I'm going to talk about that too. But I am going to be pivoting into strategy consulting after graduation, working towards venture strategy. And I have some long-term goals of impact investing. So really happy to be here and happy to meet all my co-panelists as well.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Maureen Ford. I am originally from Bridgeport, Connecticut. I graduated from the Canal School of Nursing in 2012. with Yvonne and LaDante, who's actually co-president with me of the Black Student Forum. So it's good to see a familiar face. So after graduating BC, I moved back to Bridgeport and worked about 3 years in the emergency department at Bridgeport Hospital, and then also picking up some hours at NYU Medical Center in the emergency department there. Felt the call to go to grad school, and so I was accepted to a bridge program at Winston-Salem State University in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. That's where I got my family nurse practitioner degree, and the collaboration was actually with Duke University. So I recently graduated with my PhD from Duke University School of Nursing, and I study infertility in Black women. I'm a COVID graduate, so I didn't have my ceremony last year. But since then, I took on a postdoc position. I'm at the University of Pennsylvania through the National Clinician Scholars Program. And it's a multi-site program that brings physician and nurse scholars to address different problems and actually do consulting with a few different tech startup funds, tech startups that focus on fertility and women's health, and just advise there, along with publishing and researching on infertility as well. So great to meet you all. I had a great time at Boston College, and I always love doing these things. So please ask me any question.
Hi, everybody. My name is Phil Mchugh, and I'm originally from Cincinnati, Ohio. So not quite the East Coast, but I guess east of the Mississippi. So I'll take it. When I was at BC, I studied operations management in the Carroll School of Management, and then I also studied history in the School of Arts and Sciences. I graduated in 2019, so I think the most recent alumni here on this call, which feels crazy, it was just 2 years ago, but also with COVID feels like it was 10 years ago. But yeah, after graduating, I joined a program called Venture for America, which is a 2-year fellowship program that takes recent college grads and places them at startups in kind of non-traditional startup cities. So instead of San Francisco or New York, I ended up in Cleveland, Ohio, working at a startup called Tech Elevator. And we're a coding boot camp that helps non-technical individuals get skills in coding and software engineering, and then land entry-level jobs in software development. So I'm still at that startup that I was placed at 2 years ago, working on the operations team. So super excited to be on this panel, and yeah, to hear from all of you.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Izzo. I'm from Buffalo, New York. I graduated from the School of Arts and Sciences in 2007, which I think makes me the oldest member of this panel. I am currently back in Buffalo, New York. As I said, graduated in 2007. I spent a year in Mexico teaching English, which was the perfect thing to do right after college graduation. And then I initially thought I wanted to do an English PhD. So I went to New York University and I pursued a master's en route to that, and kind of in the middle realized that really I didn't want to be kind of in the ivory tower. I wanted to be really doing something. I was spending a lot of time with a friend who was in law school and realized that was really what I wanted to do. So ended up deciding to take a different path. I went to Yale Law School, graduated in 2013. And since then, I was at a big law firm in Boston. I've worked for 3 different federal judges, and then recently moved back to my hometown of Buffalo, and I'm now at a small boutique litigation firm here.
Thanks, Rebecca. Thanks, everybody. I'm 02 if it makes you feel better. I can be the oldest one on the screen. To get started, and certainly, once again, audience members, please feel free to add questions to the Q&A. But if you don't mind, maybe we could just start with sort of a bigger, broader question, and just the impact that BC's made on your life. Personally, in your 2007 wasn't that long ago, short professional lives, but I think this question gets at a little bit at return on investment for choosing BC. So would you like to share just the impact BC's made on you? And I think we can maybe Rebecca, and then Maureen, then Yvonne.
Yeah, so there are a few different ways that I think BC has really impacted me. Number one is I think there's a real emphasis at BC about they use the word discernment, which is kind of figuring out what your path is. And I think much more so than my friends at other institutions, I feel like I was really given the tools to think about and part of this comes from the Jesuit education of the questions you ask yourself of, you know, what brings me joy? What does the world need me to do? And it gives you a framework for figuring out what you want to do. And I think that has really helped me in my career. You know, as you heard in my intro, I've done a few different things and I'm really happy where I ended up. And I think it was really all about having the tools to kind of figure that out. And I think, like I said, that comes from BC and from the Jesuit education. I'm sure we'll talk more about that later as well. But I think that's one thing. Actually, I'll just real quick tell an anecdote, which is my husband was applying for a job here in Buffalo, and he ended up not taking it, but in the process went back and forth with there was a principal of a school, and she's like, you know, I know you're still discerning. And he's like, wait a minute, did you go to BC? And she's like, yeah, I went to BC. How did you know? And it was really funny, but it was that same, just that emphasis on, again, giving you a framework to figure out what you want to do, which really impacts you through your whole career.
Thank you, Rebecca. Maureen?
Yeah, I would definitely agree. And I would add on, Jeffrey, when you said about return on investment, you know, financial aid packages, Boston College is actually the only school that didn't give me a full ride. I was offered full rides at other institutions. And I love telling that story because it just shows the impact that BC had on me when I came on campus, and things that came about that I didn't even know as I was deciding BC. Just that whole Jesuit values. I knew it was a Jesuit institution, but I didn't know how far deep the traditions ran. The fact that, you know, I'm several years out, but there's something about that men and women for others that kind of motivates me and how I do my research and how I have an equity lens and how I feel like my purpose in life actually guides my work and guides the opportunities that I do. Also the networks, also the networks that I have, my friends that I lived with. Hold on one second. Sorry, with my mom. Just the friends that I had, my roommates, Yvonne can say, you know, I see that he's very close to his roommates and friends as well. We had very similar social circles and stuff. So just being able to lean on those people that you can have those conversations about what do you want to do in life, and it changes, right? But overall, I can't say enough how the faculty members and also the student groups, at the time it was called Office of Ohana Student Programs. I'm not sure what it's called right now, but they actually brought us in and helped us and provide an equitable playing field for us.
Thanks, Maureen. Yvonne?
Yeah, thanks, Maureen. Yeah, I would say one of the biggest impacts I would say so far is honestly the value of the relationships. I've come to find that you just fundamentally get the benefit of the doubt from other BC people, BC alums, that are willing, you know, to in any situation, if they can, be helpful. It's very particular for me, this relationship thing, because I actually worked in the admissions office, you know, with Jeff and the team. I was probably the most beloved employee they've ever had. I'm sure he'll tell you. But you know, and these relationships kind of still last till today, where, you know, Jeff needs to reach out. You know, I try to make myself available. And then all the way up to my professional career now, where I literally run an investment firm with one of my roommates that I used to throw parties with, like in my senior year of college, right? And obviously you mature and kind of grow through these iterations. But it's interesting to see that. And then alongside that, one of our biggest supporters, as we've been building our firm, is actually another BC alum who was on the board of trustees at BC and actually invested in our fund. And that's Peter Bell. So for me, I've been able to see, like, in so many ways, just being able to actually like tap the BC network and build and keep those genuine relationships going, right? Because I think what I would also say too is I'm sure a lot of schools will say, hey, you know, it's that network, but I think because of obviously where Boston College is and a couple other, universities that I won't name that are in the vicinity of Boston College, I do think sometimes BC kind of gets overlooked. And I've always felt like we've kind of had this kind of underdog mentality at times where we know we're just as capable or more capable, I think, in a lot of situations. And we really value the relationships more than, just the institution or saying we went to a certain school. I find myself saying often, like, so and so is my brother or sister, or like these are like my family members that I went to Boston College, like regardless of any negative environments or experiences I may have had. It like always comes down to, man, these people were amazing, and they continue to be in my life today. So yeah, I'll just share that.
Yvonne, I don't dispute any of the ways you described yourself. You've been very generous with your time and talent through the years, but I do have somebody that might have a rebuttal, and I'd like to let Zaki introduce himself and offer any comments he might have.
Hey, give me a thumbs up if you can hear me, Jeff. There we go. So sorry about that. I'm late and I was having some technical difficulties. They were all my fault, but I figured them out and got on. But I'm Zaki Howard, and I could hear all you guys before I do your intro. So I'm also from New Jersey originally. I was born and raised in Newark. I went to St. Benedict's Prep before going to Boston College. I double majored in psychology and economics. And after school, I went into a leadership development program and at Bank of America. Left Bank of America after a number of years and went to Emory University to get my master's, an MBA in operational finance. And still working in banking. I'm actually not doing this on purpose, but I work for Truist now, and I'm actually wearing a Truist polo, which is probably pretty corny, but we'll work with it. And I graduated in 2001. So I think someone said that they're probably the oldest on the call. I'm probably the oldest on the call at this point. And I currently am the head of risk governance for the retail consumer bank at Truist, which is, if you haven't heard, it's the combined organization between BB&T and SunTrust. They just merged into one gigantic company. So, in terms of where you want me to go from there, Jeff, I'll kind of stop there with the intro and see if you want me to dive in anything else. But, congratulations, and I'm excited to be on the call. And I love doing these things. I love hearing all the stories, and eager to help make your decision as best I can. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Zaki. Good to see you. So we're getting a lot of great questions, so I want to just dive right into them. And I think some of the questions are falling into a couple of themes. One is about just the resource that the BC Alumni Network has been for all of you. And, listen to your introduction, some of you have been pretty mobile. So I'm sure the Alumni Association has been a resource for you. Could you just talk about that a little bit? Maybe even share any anecdotes that might be relevant to the question? And you don't have to raise your hand. You can just unmute.
I was trying to have some order. Sorry.
That's good. Maureen, do you want to start? And then maybe Jamie and Zaki.
All right. For me, my first job is at Bridgeport Hospital in Connecticut, and the nurse educator ended up being a BC alum. I think class of 2000, and part of our talk in the interview was talking about living in the mods, and we had a great time talking about that. There's a sense of culture, and there's just like certain staples and traditions. Marathon Monday, you just mentioned certain things like that pulls someone from BC in, and you could have those conversations. And the alumni network for the School of Nursing is pretty tight, so if there's anybody even considering nursing, I often get blasts, whether from the Alumni Association or just directly from the dean and the associate deans, hey, I have this person interested in nursing. Can they come shadow you? I've had maybe 2 or 3 nursing students or even people interested in nursing when I was at the bedside to come with me, whether it was during their spring break or over the summer, just for a couple days or a couple shifts. And, kindness begets kindness, right? Because somebody did that for me. And so, that's just the BC tradition. And I've never been turned away if I ever had a question later on. I've been asked to come back to speak, whether for student groups, and I've made myself available. And a lot of my colleagues are often making themselves available and putting out, whether on Facebook, hey, I have this BC student that needs this or that. So we're very tight.
So I think I mentioned my first job was in sales and trading, covering the Boston area. And here I was, like, this very young woman who didn't look a lot like a lot of the, investors and hedge fund managers and, general clients that we would have, especially in the Boston area. Generally in finance, it's a very kind of tight-knit community, very white, very male. And coming in to that community, I was able to connect with a lot of individuals, mainly just because I said I went to BC. And honestly, as a young, 22-year-old woman, that actually helped me build up my confidence a lot, thinking about, I had a lot of imposter syndrome going into that role and, carry a lot of imposter syndrome in general sometimes. But remembering kind of what I was able to connect with them on, and it wasn't necessarily, it was, the mods. People though, like I remember the CEO of my first company, looked at my resume and said, oh, you're Jesuit educated, let's talk about that. So it's, certainly a lot of different elements. And I think, because the student body at BC is so diverse, everyone will kind of latch on or plug into different parts of that. So I've really enjoyed kind of getting to learn what resonates with people about, what it means to be at BC.
Yeah, I think too, someone sort of alluded to this earlier, but I think there's something, BC is such a tight-knit community that there's something about, it's not just that there's the big network, but it's what's the response you're going to get when you, cold call someone and you say, hey, like, I'm a BC alum and I noticed you are too, like, and at least in my experience, like thus far, it's been so positive. Like the minute another alum knows that you're from BC, there's an instant connection, both just about the different, the various like shared references you have, but also just the kind of the warm and fuzzies that people have for the school. And just, like that anecdote I told with my husband in the beginning, like it just, people, I found that it's not just how many people are out there, but the minute you tell someone you're a BC alum, who's a BC alum, there's that instant connection. And I found certainly being in Boston, there were, more times that I can count. It got me, it was so helpful having that connection. But even here in Buffalo, which, you wouldn't think would have a huge BC community, there have been, multiple times where I've run into somebody and, or the Jesuit connection as well. Sometimes maybe it's not BC, but somebody has that connection. And it really has, on multiple occasions, helped me out professionally.
Yeah, so I'll pile on and maybe kind of end this section. There's when we talk about this, essentially what we're asking about is how far does the BC brand carry you, right? And so I've got a couple of pieces that can maybe touch on that. One is just it's everyone said it when you say you went to Boston College, people's eyes light up. It's true. It's happened to me a million times. And I've had people who I didn't think liked me, found out I went to BC, and they were like, oh, well, I think differently of you now. Like literally, it's happened before. So the name resonates. It doesn't matter where you are. When I started out of college, I moved to Delaware, since where Bank of America was at some point, and then subsequently I ended up moving to Atlanta, which I spent maybe almost 10, 15 years in Atlanta. And most recently, my wife got a new job and we moved to Washington, D.C. So I now live in Maryland. And so we're in Silver Springs, not too far from downtown. And every time I've moved, one of the first things I've done is gone to Facebook and look for the alumni network. It's just been that easy. And you can always catch a game night or volunteer opportunity. And I ended up meeting other people from BC in Atlanta, really just based off the alumni connection. And so when I moved to Maryland, and I moved here during the pandemic, so it was May of 2020, one of the first things I did, I knew there were a lot of BC alum in this area, Maryland, DC, Virginia, but I didn't know how to get in touch with folks. And I had a couple friends from school that I could call right away. But I went online and I went to LinkedIn, I went to Facebook and found the entire community. And, within, a couple of weeks, I was integrated in other emails, distribution lists, just finding out what was going on, who to contact, who to reach out to. And some folks I knew, some folks I didn't. And it was great. So, I mean, the name matters. People care, people reach out. They know you're like-minded. They understand what the value of that education is and what that experience is. And they want to be around other people who share that. And so, even if you've had the opportunity to move around the country several times, I guarantee if you find a way to tap into the alumni wherever you're at, it's going to be a benefit. I would guarantee that from my experience alone. So.
Thank you, Zaki. Thank you to the entire panel for your willingness to share your reflections here. We're getting some questions about, well, Kathleen asked, how has BC prepared you for the professional world workforce? But then this might be an opportunity maybe to talk about your academic experience. And Megan asked a question about that as well. Were you able to develop relationships with your professors that helped you during your future career path? So whenever you like to share your experience with professors or just the educational philosophy at Boston College and how that was a benefit to you.
I'll go. Yeah, so I think at least for me, one of the things, and I still kind of carry it to this day, is I really learned how to think. There were numerous classes. I mean, I'd honestly say, probably some of my non-CSUM classes were where I found a lot of the most value. But a lot of the classes I ended up taking and papers I ended up writing, a lot of it had to do with, kind of, I just remember growing up, going through middle school and high school, it's like, all right, there's a right or wrong answer for everything. And like, I need to get as many answers right as possible. And like, this is the way to get this done. And it was initially frustrating, with some theology classes or other courses where like your freshman, sophomore year, you're like trying to get the right answer. And like a professor's like, no, like I'm trying to teach you a process. And you're like, yeah, but I just want the answer. And you kind of get better at that. And I fundamentally realized, like, I mean, that's just kind of how my life is. You want to ask more questions and listen more, and kind of have that guide you to finding the right answers. But I think, regardless of if you're in the College of Arts and Sciences or in CSUM or in nursing or whatever, you're studying, I think it's just really, really important to learn to like really appreciate and love learning in a sense, and love thinking and being your own thought partner or having other thought partners. And it's okay disagreeing with people. Like, it's okay having different views, but like, let's talk through that and let's understand why we're on two different sides of the aisle, or why we agree the same thing, or something we may have even been taught growing up. And we're starting to question, like, that's okay to do. But is it out of just, rebellion, or like, are you really trying to get the understanding and learning behind it? So I think that all kind of just stems from like the Jesuit philosophy, and it feeds into a lot of different disciplines. But I've always found that super valuable and still find that to this day.
For me, I think I became a better writer at Boston College because a lot of the courses, they require some sort of written work or final paper. And so I really think that helped later on when I went to grad school. And I had an advantage really on a few of my classmates because there was that writing focus and critical thinking focus. Also, too, the advising was really good. That's something I've been to, 3 institutions now since Boston College, and the advising is top notch. The fact that I'm still in communication with Maureen Connolly, who was my advisor all 4 years at Boston College, says something. There was a small group of us. She could talk to us about our dreams and aspirations and all that stuff. And in nursing, we've always had a rigid schedule, but because of the core, as Yvonne was talking about, you do get exposed to a lot of other classes. So that was really good conversations. And, what am I learning in my philosophy class or my art class? How does that influence patient care and all that? So in terms of the professors, there might be larger of the core classes, but then you tend to have like smaller sections and stuff, so you can make connections that way. But for me, it was definitely my clinical instructors and my advisors my advisor that helped me really appreciate Boston College, and also made me feel like I had somebody in my corner who actually knew me and knew what I wanted. So she was always thinking about me as well.
Yeah, and I think those points that Yvonne and Maureen brought up about kind of those classes outside of your discipline and the classes that you're not really studying but you take can be really impactful. I think one of the most impactful classes I took was a class called Perspectives, which was a philosophy and theology combined class where we read kind of the classic texts around philosophy or theology and really engaged in discussion about, what did people see in the text, what did it mean to them, and things like that. And it's funny, that class has been like more helpful for me in the first 2 years out of college than a couple of my like business classes. Like, don't tell my financial accounting professor this, but I have not used financial accounting yet in my like 2 years on the job. But something I use every day is when we're sitting in a meeting and talking with people, in the operations team that I'm working on or the management team, where we're looking at a set of data or trying to make a decision and trying to understand, okay, the other people in this meeting, the other people on this team, where are they coming from? Like, what are their motivations? What are they seeing in this? And just understanding those like dynamics between people and working with others in a collaborative way was something I really learned in that philosophy class, and something that's been really impactful already in my career.
Thank you. One of the attendees asked about diversity at Boston College. That's one of the strengths of a university community. And then, Jamie, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but there was a question directed at you, and I think you were trying to multitask and chat a response. But if you don't mind as well, your experience as a woman in the Carroll School of Management. So
yeah, I did type a response. I think, to kind of summarize again, it wasn't something I fully noticed. I think overall, given the caliber of applicant and given the caliber of student at BC, I was, surrounded by a lot of women who weren't afraid to speak up. And I think that's probably why I didn't really notice, to be honest. Plenty of my friends from the Carroll School are women, and continue to be in great jobs that we can talk a little bit about later. I think going to that topic of diversity, and it's really interesting too, because remember, like, I'm also kind of on an undergrad campus right now. And I think just generally thinking about how, I wasn't prepared from 2010 to 2014, ages 18 to 22, to really talk about a lot of the things that individuals that are that age right now, all of you, have probably already had some practice talking about. And I really do, again, thinking about what BC stands for in terms of being men and women for others, and kind of some of that cura personalis, care of the whole person ideal, I can really see a lot of the conversations being fruitful, impactful, sometimes uncomfortable and difficult. But overall, I'm certain that the BC student today approaches them with, a lot of intention and a lot of purpose, in a way that, like we weren't doing that several years ago. And I think the times have really changed. And the question, as we move forward, and this is something I asked myself today, as we move forward into, the current climate and environment, what type of education to face these issues will I need to avail of? Will I need to really pursue for myself? And a lot of it has to do with what's taught at BC.
Yeah. So I'm gonna keep it super real. And I don't think it's necessarily like a BC thing. I just think, we see it like diversity is just like terrible everywhere. Like, everyone needs to do absolutely better everywhere, right? And I think having that lens, I do think the conversations are good, but I think it's a constant. It should never be a like, oh, did we get there? Like, oh, okay, we have a few percentage points more of like Black people or like Asians or whatever. Like, oh, are we there? I think is always the wrong perspective. And I will say what I did appreciate about Boston College is, and Maureen can speak to this as well, but we very much like were involved and influential in making sure diversity initiatives mattered. And I'm not gonna say, things always panned out the best all the time, but we for sure had a say in what was going on. We for sure were able to make our voices heard. And I think, you know, being able to do that and having a collective of people that kind of supports that, I think was pretty good back then. And to see how it's emerged now and like, you know, this next generation of college students, my just hope and desire is that you all continue to push it further. But I think fundamentally it's a muscle you have to continue to exercise. I think a lot of times we're always looking for a solution. And it's like, no, this is like a lifelong journey for me. And I'll just mention this quickly. So my fund focuses on investing in technology businesses founded by Black and Latino entrepreneurs. And that's specifically because they've gotten less than 1% of venture capital funding like ever in the history of VC, right? So that's a conscious effort, like on my partner and I's part, to say like, no, this runs deep everywhere. It's not just a university, it's not just corporate America, it's not just startups. So I think it's important. Obviously, we all can't solve every problem, but we need to be open to having the conversations. We need to be open to just learning from one another, right? And realizing, I think that was the other great thing about BC. Like you can go up to someone randomly that grew up in a completely different environment from you and spark a conversation. And I think that's easier to do these days. And people are willing to actually hear other people's perspective and have empathy for their experience. It all starts from empathy. And I think a lot of that was developed and like learned at BC, but like I'm not letting anybody off the hook. Like we all still have a lot more work to do.
Yeah, and I would agree. And Yvonne and I came in 2012, just a few months before President Obama was elected for his first term. And so that was very interesting time to be on campus, right? Your first Black president. And I don't know, we came in 2008, sorry, we graduated 2012. So yeah, just very interesting time having the first Black president. So it sparked a lot of conversations. It was very interesting seeing people's reactions on the presidential like outcomes, and you know, nothing's new under the sun. The last presidential election was very interesting. So I can imagine the conversations on campus. And so also, I know for me, I found homes in my friends, like what Yvonne said earlier, my brothers and sisters. Those are people that I leaned on. Those are people that understood me. Personally, I'm a first generation college student, first generation American. There's a different way I approach the world. And so connecting with other people who fit, you know, those same like titles and stuff was what got me through. But also it was, you know, making friends with other peoples and lab and all that stuff that helped me expand my mindset in terms of how I thought the world was going to be. There's a lot of interesting and diverse people going to BC. And so overall, a lot of it is going to be what you make of it. In some ways, you can be in your bubble. You cannot leave campus. Personally, I like leaving campus a lot. I was always somewhere in Boston or Cambridge. Or, you know, you can like not be the change that you want to see. You know, back in the day, unfortunately, I would assume that you guys maybe don't have the option to. There was that like Eagle acceptance weekend where you could come in and like spend the weekend on campus. I was part of student admissions program, so making sure as many people of color were volunteering to be hosts. And I think that next year was a really cool year in terms of the diversity that came on campus. And so, you know, at the end of the day, it's a college campus. What runs it really is the students. Yeah, there are administrators and stuff, but the student leaders advocating for what they want is what's really going to bring about a lot of the change.
So I have to speak on this topic. I almost feel like tearing up a little bit to just kind of see how far this conversation's gone. And to be honest, I think, you know, Yvonne said it really, really well. You have to be intentional. You know, numbers don't fix any problem. But if you get enough opportunities to try to have the right type of conversations with the right type of people, and you give them the right type of environment, you can get the right type of outcomes. I know there's a lot of ifs in there, but you know, I always walk away from a lot of the experience that I had at BC knowing that, you know, there were places within the university that had my back and that I had support from, and some of those people look like me and some of them didn't, and that was fine. I mean, there's been a lot of you know, racial tension, I'll say, you know, as we wait for a verdict coming out of Minnesota as we speak. And you know, when things got really, really bad last summer, I had tons of BC alumni reaching out to me and support, from, people I hadn't seen. It's been 20 years since I graduated. I know it's scary to even say that, but I really feel like some of the people who understood me the most, or at least attempted to understand, empathize, sympathize, wanted to learn more, wanted to understand where I came from, what my perspective was, and vice versa, to be perfectly honest. That's a two-way street. We're all people I went to school with, and that still survives to this day. And I've, a lot of my relationships from BC alum, some older, some younger, I can still have that conversation and know that those people still support me, care about me, love my family, and would do, anything they could to kind of help, right? And so again, I think it's about being intentional. And I think a lot of, and you could probably hear a theme, a lot of the type of conversation that we're having in terms of how to teach people, how to have conversations, how to answer questions, how to ask questions. A lot of that allows you to kind of drive to certain parts that allow you to gain that sort of perspective. And so, I don't think BC is unique in that way, but it is special. And it is kind of funny to look back on it, even now, listening to everyone on the panel, and think about my own experience and go, wow, there's clearly some of the same things exist, but it seems like we're still fighting and still making a lot of progress. But it feels like the same level of support's there. And I can only just draw from my own experience about, the way that, the people I was around, have continued to support me. And that's a wonderful thing. And hopefully that continues. So.
Thank you all for your thoughtfulness and candor. An attendee asked, how have you stayed connected to the university? So feel free to answer the question directly if you want, or this could be an opportunity to answer something that's often also asked in your favorite traditions. What do you miss? What would you come back for once we can?
I mean, I'm over 30 now, so I'm not sure if I could hang, but maybe a marathon Monday. If I do that, definitely reunion. We had a blast. The last reunion. So the next one, oh God, 10 years in 2022. Anything like the Black Student Forum is doing. I've come back for different football games as well. So tailgating and all that jazz is cool. And yeah, in different events, I've been invited back to speak like in the spring for like different student events as well. So there's just plenty of opportunity. It's just a matter of time. And, now I have a kid, a 4-month-old, so things kind of change. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, I love going back for football games and tailgating. And I'm not even like a huge football fan per se. I just like love the atmosphere. And I loved it when I was in college, and I love it now. And now we bring our kids, and all of our friends bring our kids. I mean, not this year, but hopefully this coming year, hopefully this coming fall. And I don't know, I think it's just, there's just such a, again, like warm and fuzzy, like feeling of being on campus, and everyone's got their, the tailgates and just, I don't know, even if you don't end up going to the game, just the whole like atmosphere, I love that. And I'm really excited to hopefully this fall, we'll see, I don't know, but whenever we're able to do it.
Thank you. I mean, I imagine one way you're connected is through your friend group, right? Do you keep in contact with people from BC? Some of the questions have asked if we have alumni in specific career paths that might not be represented on this panel. So maybe a way to talk about some people in certain fields. But can you talk a little bit about, does your BC friend network remain intact? What does that look like now at this point in your life?
So 5 of my 7 groomsmen were BC alum. So they all stood with me. They were all up there. It was exciting. So yeah, we still continue to talk. We, through the pandemic, a lot of us are scattered around the country, as far as California, and then obviously it's close, really right here in DC where I'm at. And we still do Zooms. We'll do like a happy hour Zoom call. And we're all fathers now, so we'll bring our kids and sit on the Zoom and and just kind of chat and catch up. And so it's great. But no, that those relationships, they've never broken. I mean, these are the guys I stayed in dorms with in sophomore, junior, senior year. We're still all friends. And again, a lot of them were either at my wedding or in my wedding.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll add. Oh,
okay.
sorry, guys.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll add to that. So I'm actually trying to think even tactical. So I do have friends that some have gone on to be doctors, some are teachers. It actually was an interesting mix of like my roommates, some of us in finance, but I would say there's definitely, I can't speak to it specifically, but whatever kind of discipline you're in the sciences or the arts or whatever, there's definitely a network. And the main thing I would say even with that is like don't be shy about like reaching out to individuals like that graduated from BC within your discipline that may be super successful or may seem to have like a certain role within that discipline. And you think like, wow, that's where I may want to be 10 years or like 25 years, like reach out to them now. I found that really impactful, even and while I'm not doing the things I was looking at doing when I was still in undergrad. It was really easy to reach out to folks and set up meetings and just talk to them about what they do. They're actually normally really open to it and really want to help alums or current students. I would actually say some of them actually want to help current students more than alums. So I would say definitely try to leverage whatever resources the university is offering that you can actually get access to folks in like different disciplines.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, as far as contact, like I'm in two massive group texts with different groups of friends from BC with just daily we're all in daily contact, and there's we are scattered around the country now, but they're still some of my closest friends, and it's been nice seeing each other through like now that we've been out coming up on 15 years, coming up on the 15-year reunion relatively soon, seeing everyone through the various stages of being early career. Now we're all kind of in mid-career, people are having kids, and like supporting everyone through those changes. And as far as what people are doing, they're really doing all sorts of different things. Like I doctors, nurses, all sorts of different business things. And it's like there's a huge diversity just among my friend group of what people ended up doing, which what's cool is that it's not only is it helpful, people think a lot about like, oh, it's somebody in my industry, but it's also great. Like I can't tell you how many times I've had somebody who's like, I've been able to make a connection for them of, oh, I know this person from BC who's doing XYZ who could be a great and foster connection that way. So it's really, the relationships you build, and I think this all stems from the community there, are lifelong.
I also want to add something quickly, because while I'm sure there'd be a lot of you that will go into CSOM or nursing and like do great things, but the truth of the matter is, there's probably a lot of you that just don't know what you want to do, and like that's perfectly fine, right? I think what I was always taught growing up is like, it's fine if you don't know what you want to do. It's not okay. It's not fine to not challenge yourself and like explore things, right? So what I would say is, as you're figuring this out, like it's okay that your friends may know, hey, I'm gonna be this scion on Wall Street or this doctor or whatever, and that's great, and hopefully they find joy in those passions. But like, if it takes you, all 4 years or just a year or a semester to figure out what it is you want to do, that's completely fine. And don't let anyone make you feel as though like, because you didn't continue a track you started on, or you don't have it all figured out, that there's a problem with that. Like fundamentally, that's the whole point of life, right? Like you'll figure it out, and just make sure you're challenging yourself and not being stagnant. But I'm still figuring things out now. So yeah.
Just really quickly, I think that kind of ties into one of the questions about, multiple of us on this panel have advanced degrees since undergrad. And so there are several BC alumni in my program, in my class, and then also they were second years who just graduated. I've grown very, very close with them. And at least one of them was also in CSOM. And we were talking about this last year when he was helping me prep for one of my interviews. you know, we both already have business degrees. Like, why did we still go kind of pursue another one? That doesn't make the first degree less valuable. I think, again, thinking back to what we were talking about a little bit before about really, you know, how a lot of the foundation built at BC is really that of reflection and questioning and discernment, that, yeah, still kind of made it, in my personal life, made sense to go pursue another business degree at another institution. Yeah, I do think that that'll come up. And I think that there's something to be said for not necessarily, you know, there's not a lot of pressure to get it right the first time. But use this opportunity as your kind of tinkering ground, your experimenting ground. And I think you're going to be supported with a lot of frameworks for those questions and discernment.
So I just put in the chat just the last 4 people that like I saw their Instagram stories and maybe like DM'd or something. They all went to BC, and I found a couple of their LinkedIn pages and stuff. And so you can just see all the very interesting things that they're doing. One thing many of us had to realize too, that some of the jobs that we were looking for in 2012 that we have now probably didn't even exist back then. And especially with like technology and, you know, even Yvonne's fund, right? He's building businesses, you know, that didn't exist before, which will then provide jobs that need certain ideas later on. So I think big picture, see what skills you can get at BC, you know, what leadership opportunities can you take on, handling budgets for a club, I think might help in handling budgets later on for a new startup. And so just understanding a lot of the skills that you're going to obtain are going to be different from a lot of other schools, and it's going to make you more marketable and more desired, honestly, later on.
Thanks, everybody. 2 more questions. One is something that may have made Boston College distinctive among the schools that students were looking at early or right now on the list of choices is our Jesuit Catholic identity. You know, what role did that play in your college search? You know, I think for most students, they don't enter BC with a great understanding of Jesuit education unless they attended a Jesuit high school or have a close family member or relative who's a product of Jesuit education. I like to think we graduate a lot of proponents of Jesuit education, and BC students start to understand why the philosophies, you know, flourished for a very long time. But can you talk a little bit about how the Jesuit nature at BC, you know, impacted your educational experience and maybe your life?
So I'll start. So I'm Jewish, so I did not go into the college search like seeking out Jesuit education. And if anything, when I was looking at schools, I was a little wary of like, you know, I don't know, will I fit in there? Will I be comfortable there? And I am now a huge proponent of Jesuit education. I think it, you know, the philosophy of men and women for others, it's not just a tagline, you know, you really feel that there. And you've like, one of the things that really sticks with me is I would say like just anecdotally among my friends, like the percentage of people who either did a volunteer, who volunteered either through a class or through a service trip or through some other means. I mean, it's close to 100%. And I mean, again, anecdotally with my friends at other schools, I mean, there's no comparison. And I think, you know, what that does is it gives you just an appreciation of so many different things that you take with you throughout your life. And it's a whole philosophy that you use no matter what you end up doing, you know, whether you're someone who ends up going into a sort of a career that's really service-based, you know, you're directly serving people, or whether it's something that is, you know, not necessarily, you know, you're in business or you're in whatever, and it's not necessarily like that obvious, but it's in the way that your philosophy, the way you comport yourself. And I think it's a really special thing. And I think it really it's just an experience you won't get anywhere else, not anywhere else that's not a Jesuit institution. And so it's been a huge impact on me, and I feel like it's, again, really, really special and really positive.
Yeah, for me, when I was looking, I definitely felt drawn to kind of the Jesuit Catholic identity. Having been raised Catholic, I was definitely looking for that in my kind of college experience. And something that I was drawn to at BC is that I could find that like in different places on campus. So if I wanted to kind of engage in conversations around faith or spirituality or things like that, I didn't have to go to like a specific room in a specific building and like just talk about it there. But those kind of conversations like happened in a lot of different classes or a lot of different people on campus. One of my favorite things to go to was a weekly speaker series that BC students put on called Agape Latte, which was essentially kind of like a TED talk that somebody on the staff or faculty at BC would give, but was focused on kind of how faith or spirituality played a role in their life. And that was such a cool experience to hear like my business law professor or like the librarian or even like the dean of like the nursing school talk about the role that faith and spirituality played in their life. And it happened right in the dining hall in Hillside Cafe, like where we would eat lunch. It happened there once it kind of closed down for the day. So really cool to just kind of have that conversation of faith and spirituality happening on campus and be able to tap into that.
Thanks so much. And so this has been our final question. This has been a theme in the Q&A questions. And audience, thank you so much for your great questions. Any advice? I offer all of you the opportunity to pass along some unsolicited, but I'm sure wise advice about college or life afterwards. And if not advice, just if you want to offer a final comment, please feel free.
Yvonne and I both answered the question that was asked about what surprised us as new students in the chat. So you can go read that. I learned some tough lessons, in terms of, it's going to be a lot harder than high school. Your first friends won't necessarily be, your friends forever. And I think the advice I would give is to be patient and kind to yourself and continue to bring your authentic self to everything you do and lean on the community. And that's really all you can do. Everything will work itself out.
100% agree with everything Jamie just said. And also I'd add to that, which kind of like is an offshoot of that, like run your own race. And it's funny, I deal with this with founders and CEOs of companies I invest in, and they're looking at competitors. And like as a student, you're going to be looking around at your peers and am I doing enough? Am I smart enough? Am I going fast enough? Am I getting the right internship opportunities? At the end of the day, like you have to run your own race. Our DNA is all specific to each individual for a reason. And I'm not gonna say it's not gonna get tough, right? There's family pressures, parental, there's societal pressures, there's, all these pressures that you're gonna face, and you'll get through them, right? But it's gonna be a lot easier to get through them when you realize that like you need to live your life for yourself and make the best decisions that you can for yourself. And you just have to get comfortable with your strengths and weaknesses, your flaws and all, and that makes you who you are. And once you embrace that, you can build upon that and live a meaningful life for yourself as opposed for anyone else.
Yeah, I would say kind of building off of what everyone has said so far, try not to put too much pressure on yourself to have it all figured out. Like one of my mentors said to me, recently, actually, like, a career is long. And I think that's so true. And it's easy when you first get to college to be like, oh my God, I need to figure out my major. I need to figure out what I'm going to do. And it's like one step at a time, like figure out your major, but it doesn't need to be day one of freshman year. It can be like I think the biggest thing I always tell people, like when I'm talking about career advice, is figuring out what you don't want to do is just as important. So let's say you like, as an example, I thought I wanted to major in econ. I did really well in high school. I took an advanced econ class and I did terribly. And I was like, I hate this and it's terrible. And I got a B-. And it was great because I would have been economics would not have been great for me. And I realized that, and like letting those kind of taking the long view and realizing like, and letting those, you know, I won't even say failures, letting those setbacks, like being able to, you know, realize that that is what helps you get to where ultimately where your path is going to lead you. But just try not to put so much pressure on yourself to have it all figured out.
I'd say everything, ditto to everything. And you're accepted, so you belong. I've had some bad failures where I wish I got a B minus. You know, I had to drop classes. And you know, just feeling like, you know, I didn't belong. I didn't have parents that went to college. The tuition is more than my mom makes in income, you know, and so just feeling other and stuff like that. A lot of that was I put on myself. And so if I could go back and console that, you know, freshman year Maureen, it's just like, it's going to be okay. You're going to find your purpose. You're in your purpose. You just maybe need different study skills and stuff. You need to organize your time better, not go to parties that Yvonne and his roommates are throwing, and study a little bit longer. But, you know, those relationships are great. Those are the ones that get you through. And I had a lot of fun in Boston too, like, you know, seeing other people in other schools. And it made me appreciate BC actually more. The small campus, the attention that I got from my professors and stuff. You know, at schools down the road that are a little bigger and stuff, they don't necessarily get that attention. So yeah, have pride in yourself and I don't know, make the right decision and go to Boston College.
The one quick piece of advice I would offer too is that, like, I think making the decision is a really big decision when it comes to like what you're going to study, and does the school have the programs and the professors to support you academically. But when I look back, I also think of like all the ways that I grew, like in learning about myself and like relationships and friendships and things like that, and like service and spirituality and all those things. So I think like finding a fit that also supports those pieces of you as well is really important. So not just that, you know, the school has a great biology department and you're going to study biology and have great professors, but all those other things that kind of make up who you are, is the school going to support those and help you to kind of build and develop those things outside of academics? I think is really important to consider as well.
So I think I'm last. So I'll round it off really quickly. I'll echo everything everyone said. Maureen, you know, took almost the words right out of my mouth. I had the idea that, oh my God, the kids at BC are really smart, and I got in there, so maybe they made a mistake, right? You know, and so when I got to campus, I was slightly intimidated. You know, I have a similar story. My parents didn't go to college, and you know, my tuition was high compared to what we were seeing every year in my household. So there was a little bit of no. You got in, you belong, you should be here. You're part of this campus. You're part of this community. You know, the only person to make you feel any different is yourself, right? And so from that is really what I'll kind of pivot to. You know, my words of wisdom, so to speak, which is take advantage of the opportunity. If you've gotten into Boston College and you choose to go, which I think you should, and you're there, you are going to have the opportunity to do some amazing things, meet some amazing people, live in a great city. You know, the football team's not that good, but outside of that, I think there's a lot of awesome things to do while you're there. And you don't want to throw that up, you know, in the garbage. You don't want to take that for granted. And, you know, I'll tell one quick small anecdote. When I got to sophomore year, maybe it was junior year, I was home for summer break, and I had a buddy of mine who said, you know, when was the last time you went to, you know, the museum, or have you been to Faneuil Hall yet, or have you caught a play? And I sat there and I was like, no. And I came from New Jersey, and I had done all that stuff in New York City, because New York's amazing. And then I realized, I'm like, look, I got about a year and a half to do as much in the city of Boston as humanly possible. And so I hustled, and I did everything. I went to Boston games, I went to football games, I did everything. But I took that with me. And so every city I've lived in since then, and I've lived in LA, I've lived in Delaware, obviously I live in Maryland now, lived in Atlanta. Every time I got to a new place, I decided to take advantage of the opportunity. And it's just another thing that I kind of walked away from when I was at BC, and just, you know, understanding, hey, you're here for a reason, you're here for a purpose. Make the most of that opportunity while you have it, and don't let it go away and have regrets about the things you could have and should have done later. So that would be the last thing I would leave.
Well, Maureen, Rebecca, Jamie, Yvonne, Phil, Zaki, thank you so much. Maureen, you made the comment about the importance of admitted student programming. And while we're hosting a small number of admitted students on campus for tours, most of our students and families are making their decision based on what they see virtually. So we can't thank you enough for your enthusiasm and authenticity. You're all men and women for others. Audience, please know all these individuals helped us last year as well. I'm just proud to say I went to the same school as all of you. But you're also, this panel is also victim. I think they will be victims of their own success. Families, if you have any younger siblings on the call, I hope you'll see these people in the future because we will be asking. Hopefully they'll want to be virtual panelists moving forward. We'll continue to have programming the rest of the month. If the admissions office can be a resource at all, please let us know. I hope the students on the call, I hope you're going to look back at your high school as a place that you're proud to say you graduated from for the rest of your lives. Sadly, I don't think that's the case for every high school student. I would say knowing the caliber of students on this call, I think you set yourself up to maybe have that in your college. And what a great thing it is, right? Look at all these folks. Like, they're willing to drop everything from caring for an infant to managing family life to, I'm sure, a busy work schedule that continues into the early evening. They care enough about Boston College to want to share their time, and we are very, very grateful to them. So thank you, panel. I look forward to talking with you again before too long. Thanks all the students and families that tuned in this evening, and we hope it was helpful. Have a great night, everybody.